Welcome back to another episode of the Flying Upstream Show. This is the show where dreamers, disruptors, and seekers of truth come to share their stories. I'm your host, Luisa, and today's conversation is for everyone who's ever felt like there's something more out there and in here too. Our guest's life reads like a science fiction novel, but he'd tell you it's more truth than fiction. And he would know because he wrote the book. Actually, he wrote three books. Paul is a former Air Force officer turned author, spiritual investigator, and intuitive messenger. His trilogy, The Disclosure Paradox, The Disclosure Deception, and The Disclosure Protocol, explores humanity's hidden connection to extraterrestrial life, spiritual awakening, and the global resistance to disclosure. But here's the thing, the stories are based on actual life experiences. From uncovering cryogenic chambers in secret military basements to experiencing wormholes in meditation, and receiving messages from advanced civilizations, Paul has lived what most would call unbelievable. But what if believing was the very key to evolving? Paul, welcome to Flying Upstream.
Thank you for having me here.
Of course. I'm so excited to have you. I was just sharing with you before we got on that I have so many questions that I'm really hoping we have time to get to all of them. I'm really excited. Let's talk a little bit about your military work and how that sort of evolved into the inspiration to write your book.
Actually, it wasn't the military experience that caused me to write the book. It was just a piece of, a point in the meandering path that I took to get to the realization that I needed to write a book. And it's kind of lengthy because essentially it's my life story. And incidentally, that book, The Disclosure Paradox, essentially is like an autobiography. And so I guide the reader in the process of how I went through all of the stages to get to the point to actually write the book. So it's kind of the reader actually gets to understand why I wrote the book while reading the book. And it starts out as a young boy being brought up in a Catholic family, going to Catholic school, and having critical thinking early, and being skeptical about the way that they were teaching us about religion and the things that they were teaching us. And I was probably one of the only kids that were getting bad grades, much to the chagrin of my family. And it was replaced by science fiction. I replaced that belief system with science and science fiction, following the space programs, the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, reading science fiction, H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, and watching those films. That is what was the foundation for my belief system. So in high school, there was an incident where I caught a interview with Eric von Daniken on a radio show after falling asleep listening to rock music. I woke up to this interview, and he was talking about passages in the Bible that were misinterpreted, that were actually descriptions of the prophets meeting with advanced life forms with high technology rather than God or the angels. And specifically, he was talking about the book of Ezekiel. And so the next day I went to school, took the Bible out, looked up the book of Ezekiel, and sure enough, the words were just as he mentioned. And I could see that there was a lot there that needed to be investigated. And it was a validation of my skepticism about what we were being taught in Catholic school. So that was another piece. then you fast forward to when I was an officer in the Air Force after graduating college with an architecture degree. I joined the Air Force, and one of my stations was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is the cradle of research and development for the Air Force. And there was an incident that led me further down the road of being inquisitive. I was a construction manager, and the facility that I was supposed to visit to evaluate prior to construction was an organization called Foreign Technology Division. And that facility was about 250 by 250 square. It was a two-story warehouse that was adapted into a secure facility. So they used the warehouse to make this secure facility, 2 stories. It was a all metal building. And when you got there, you were uh, surrounded by motion detectors. And then if you even had a top secret clearance, you needed to be escorted around. As I got through the double doors to get to where I needed to go, I recognized that the doors had no numbers, no names, there was no directory. And my escort told me that whoever was in one office did not know what was going on in the next office, which is called compartmentation, uh, following the need to know practice. My project was on the second floor. They gutted the second floor so that they could install computer systems in there. And I was to check the second floor to make sure that there was no possibility of a contractor having claims for differing site conditions based on the drawings that they're given. So I looked at the drawings that they gave the contractor, which are as-built drawings, which are drawings that indicate the condition of the facility prior to construction. And going through drawings, I recognized that there was a sheet that said basement on it. And I thought this was a former warehouse, and warehouses normally don't have basements. If you want more space, you just make the warehouse bigger. That's the cheapest thing to do. So I evaluated the floor plan, and I looked, and it matched the basement matched the floor plan of the building. So it was authentic. That sheet was authentic, and it was actually part of the building. So I turned pages, and I find another sheet which shows a diagram, a detailed floor plan of a 70 by 90 cryogenic chamber. And that's when I realized that there was information here that was of a not need to know, that it was sensitive, and I made sure that the escort did not see that I saw that information. So I rolled the drawings up, put them exactly the way they were, and kept that information with me. I kind of filed it away. It wasn't pressuring me. I wasn't stressed out about it, that I had this sensitive information. Um, and it was just interesting how my spirit probably just kept it in the back of my mind. And just when I needed it came out. And that was in 2009 when I was watching Ancient Aliens. And once again, they had Eric Von Daniken, and they were talking about Ezekiel again. And I recall the day when I was in high school, when I heard about that in the Bible. And then I recalled my experience in the Air Force, and I put those two together, and that made me not only inquisitive, but on a quest to find out more information that we're not being told of. And from right there, I started to get contact with individuals that were, people that were involved in finding conspiracies related to energy, for example, or patents that were being kept by the public and taken by the Department of Energy for security reasons, things like that. the chemtrail conspiracy, the ALEC organization, which is the American Legislative Executive Commission, which are corporations that come together semi-annually, and they put together legislation on paper, and they give it to uh, the people in the House of Representatives, and they put bills together based on what the corporations want. So things like that. And what was interesting was that those people that were on a quest to find that kind of information were also talking about extraterrestrials and contact, and they would claim that they had contact. Some claimed that they were abducted. Some claimed that they had implants put on them. And I realized that these people were opening up to me, but they were also very defensive, and they were telling me that they're careful about talking to people because they were being told that they were crazy, or their family would not talk to them because of the things that they would say. So I set up a support group on Facebook called Spirits and Healing. And we had as many as 300 people in that group that were all communicating with each other, sharing stories, comparing their experiences. And I was documenting this stuff. And I was putting together a blog called The Red Pill, and I would write about that. So I also realized that there were people that were saying that they were psychic after they became, they had contact or that they were abducted. And another thing that was very common with these people is that a lot of them would meditate. So I took up meditation in 2009. And with that red pill and all that information I was getting, it was rich. And the people that I was talking to, they had amazing experiences, and they were very interesting people, and psychic. Now, one by one, these psychic people would tell me, and they don't know each other, but they would tell me that I had a role to play, that I was doing something that was important. So I found that in the back of my mind, and one psychic would be very, very direct with me, and then she would go into a trance. And when she go into a trance, a higher intelligence would contact me through her. So she would be a medium for this group that they call themselves the Watchers. And they would contact me, and they would tell me that to keep doing what I was doing, that I was special, and that I was to be a counselor and informer. So with that, I started to be more, thinking about what I needed to do to fulfill this role. Okay.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I lost my job, and I decided to get back in with the government to get back my 13 years with the service. And so if I got back with the government, I would, be able to retire as a government employee. But to do that, I stopped my blog, and I also left the group because I didn't want the people that were doing the search to find that out about me. So I got the job. I was meditating. I started meditating 2009. I was doing like 45 minutes a day. And not long after I got my job, the woman who had who served as the medium told me, or they told me, that they would test me. And I thought, well, okay, we'll see what happens. And it turned out that in meditation, I went through a wormhole. And that was an amazing experience because, it was color, it was light, it was vibration, it was heart palpitation. If you saw the film Contact with Jodie Foster, it was just like that motion. And once I realized what was happening, I was back in my body. 2 more years later, I had another profound meditative experience, and that was what I would call the indigo cloud. I saw a cloud of indigo in front of me, and not only did I see that, but I also felt a euphoria that you don't feel that kind of happiness here on Earth. It's kind of like the experience that people have when they have a near death experience, and they, like are going towards the light, and they feel they have that feeling. So that was what I was feeling. The cloud dissipated, and as I got closer, the euphoria got stronger, and I saw across the horizon flashes of indigo, just in a cluster of activity, like a beehive of activity. And what I was being told in meditation was that the flashes were individual spirits between lives, so they have passed, and the flash was either them downloading their past life or uploading their next life. And then they told me that that entire mass of energy, which those spirits are, or spirits are energy, if all together in that one consciousness, that mass of consciousness, was what we call God. And that's when I was back in my body. So I used those profound experiences, all of the documentation that I had from my red pill um, blog, all the characters, all the people that I've met, and I decided I needed to write a book. And what I did is I sat down when I decided in one weekend, I wrote 31 pages of outline straight. Now that I had help, obviously, I had something helping me to do that, because there's no way that a first time writer could come up with an outline like that as detailed.
Yeah.
Uh, and I didn't stray from it. So that's what led me to write the book, was all of those experiences, all of that sequentially leading up to that.
That's amazing. And I'm glad you said that, because that was going to be my question is it, we've all heard many authors, many books, many pieces of writing. I've never heard one sit down and write down 31 pages. So I was getting
Yep.
ready to ask you that question about whether you felt like that was guided, whether you felt like, you were being helped with that. And from your perspective, do you feel like all of the events that happened that led you up to write that book were sort of predetermined events?
Yes, absolutely. Part there's a chapter in the book where um, I had a regressive therapy with a woman, a psychic. Psychics have their own specialties. Some uh, are precog, some are could connect with the past,
Mhm.
and the past lives, and some could read your spirit and tell you what lives you have had in the past. So this woman, she told me that I had a couple of past lives, and that the the life before, um, I the first one was I was in the body of an Olmec warrior in the year 902 AD, passing at the age of 26. And then the next one was a Siberian shaman, passing in 1718 at the age of 54. And I asked her, so did I have spiritual experiences when I was a shaman? And she said, yes. And so I said, so then I was connected with the spirit world. And she said, yes. And then she indicated that my spirit told her that it made an agreement when, remember I tell you about the flashes,
Yeah.
during the flashes for getting the next life. My spirit was supposed to advance to the next level, Instead, it made a deal where it would return linked to a human and carry out this role that I have. And in exchange, it would advance 2 levels when it would pass.
Mm. I love that. I love that a lot because, during this very human life that I call it, a lot of the lessons, a lot of the experiences that we have are quite difficult, at least in my own human experience so far. And for a long time before I had my own spiritual awakening, I didn't understand why. I never understood why me, why this, why that. And after that awakening that I've experienced, that has absolutely just changed the trajectory of my life. I can relate to exactly what you're saying because I now understand that the experiences that I'm here to have are to help me elevate in the spirit world. It's because at soul level, I came here to have those difficult experiences for evolution so that I could evolve on to the next level. So I can totally relate to that part of it. One of the themes that runs through that first book is the truth being suppressed for our own good. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Um, when when we exploded the atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it was like a fire alarm throughout the universe because the universal community recognized that we were like children playing with matches. We had the technology, but we were so far from the spirituality, from having the ethics, from having the responsibility of having that kind of technology. And what our scientists didn't understand when they came up with that that weapon, that invention, is that when it released that amount of energy in that amount of time, it actually affected other dimensions, not just what we have here. Yeah. So that's why the Universal Committee was quite upset. And that's why there had been such a spike in activity since then, especially around all our nuclear facilities where we keep nuclear weapons, even where we keep them secret, where other people are not supposed to know, but they know that we store them in places that other people aren't supposed to know, or other countries are not supposed to know. So um, they're monitoring that part of us. And um, the other aspect is that yes, we are spiritually corrupt because of our DNA. It's our DNA that makes us violent, barbaric, have an irrational obsession with possessions, and being racist to the point of being genocidal on our own, where we have mass murders of our own species. So they obviously understand that if we are willing to kill our own, we may well, for any reason, kill others. So we are under what's called a technological and a social quarantine. And our governments know this. And disclosure, if we had disclosure, it would lead to contact. If we had contact, it would lead to a technological exchange. And with our greed and our unethical organizations and people that we have, they would take that technology and use it against the ones that gave it to us and try and conquer them. That's what they're afraid of. They know that we are probably the most dangerous species in the universe, but they have warned our government, our governments and our organizations about disclosure, that it is not in our best interest because they don't want it to lead to this technological advancement for us. We're not ready for that. So they have warned us, and that's why the governments are dragging their feet about getting the truth out about extraterrestrials and UFOs and this and the underground submersibles that we see and all that stuff. There, the reason is that um, if we were to be more truthful about that, and it would lead to an undesirable situation, they would very likely strike us as a preemptive strike to
Mm.
to attack the infrastructure that would lead to that technology. So governments know about that, and that's why we are in the situation that we are in. We will not be part of the universal community until we fundamentally change our spirituality, and that's going to take a lot.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's something that has begun to happen?
It's well, I think they want us to be with them. They want us to advance spiritually. That's why people like myself, yourself, maybe there are many others that I would call like secret cells or sleeper cells that are trying to help advance the spirituality of humanity. Okay, they want to do it. They can't do it. Um, they they can't do it where they are directing us or where they help us, because here's the other thing is that this planet is actually a school for our spirits. Our spirits are linked to us in order to understand about love, pain, suffering, beauty, creativity, all that. Energies can't experience that. They only can experience if they're linked to us through the pineal gland. And so this is a school for our spirits. How to improve ourselves, because it would be cheating. It would be giving us the answers to the test. So we have to do it on our own. But they're trying to get around it by having humans like us to help people out. And, that's, I mean, that's essentially it. The paradox is there's two paradoxes. One is that there will be unintended consequences if there is disclosure. And second, how are we as a human race supposed to improve ourselves spiritually if we're not allowed to know what's wrong with us? Our DNA is our original sin. It's not what the Bible says and not what the Christians are saying. It's our DNA that is our actual sin. And that is what we need to cure.
That's amazing. And I would add to what you said that, we are here and we are, we going within, like we need to figure it out ourselves. We need to, right? They can't just directly tell us. I think for me, the way that I view that is that important. And so many of us out there right now with the agenda of helping people to go within in one capacity or another, I always preach meditation and any chance that I get, because I found my truth by going within. I found my truth and I can live from that place of truth and rebuild my foundation from that place of truth with guidance from within, right? But I find that without us going within and them trying to help us and guide us, if we're not going within, then it kind of like has to be told. But you don't build the same foundation when somebody else is telling you to build it
Right.
than when it comes from yourself.
Exactly. That's the failure of religion, right? Is that it's not allowing the individual to search within themselves. It's forcing beliefs. It's forcing practices. It's rudimentary, and really there's not that much substance to it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the school system in a way where it's like, I'm telling you this and this is right because I'm telling you it. But
Right.
yeah. Um, in the second book, we see a little bit of a shift from discovery to a sort of deeper connection. You shared that a lot of a lot of this that you wrote is, from experience, and the first one almost autobiographical. What happened in your life in that transition from that first book to the second book that kind of made that second one go a little bit deeper?
The second one came about, um, the one that will be coming out in October, which is Salvation. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so let me tell you another little story uh, about the roles that we have and destiny and fate. Um, I wrote The Disclosure Paradox, self-published in 2019, And then I self-published a second book, which was a prequel to the Disclosure Paradox, called What Doesn't Kill Her. And that was based on a character in the first book, given her origins. And it's based on, again, a real person. She actually allowed me to fictionalize her life in that second book. Well, those two books together, they were not very successful, and I thought, there must be another way that I need to be a counselor and an informer, because this isn't working. So just when I was about to throw in the towel, so to speak, a Benedictine priest searched on the internet extraterrestrials and spirituality and found that first book, and he liked it, and he friended me, and then he started sending me documents of research papers from all over the world, from scientists and researchers on the Shroud of Turin. And he said, you know what's missing from this first book is the Shroud of Turin. So I thought, okay. And I started reading the documents they sent me. It was about botany, it was about hematology, forensics, physics, art history, archaeology, all kinds of things, even geology. And all of those elements contributed to I declaring the Shroud as authentic. And I thought, wow, this actually would make for a very good sequel, because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Um, and so I put an outline together for him. He liked it. I put a manuscript together for him 6 months afterwards, and he liked it to the point where he has written the foreword for that novel. Now, it still didn't have anyone that was interested in it. I still had two books that were self-published, not doing well. But I decided to go through the classic, process of going to queries and trying to find an agent. Um, Not much success, actually no success, until I was on Facebook and I got a message from an editor who asked me to allow him into a group that I was an administrator of. I volunteered to be an administrator of this group about writing books. It's called Writing Journeys. And so it turned out that he was the founder of that group, and he was in cancer remission. And so he came back, got into the group. He thanked me for it. And as a favor, or as returning the favor, actually, of being the administrator for him, he looked at the query letter. He kind of fixed it up. And then he was interested, because of the information in the query letter, he was interested in looking at the manuscript. So I sent him the manuscript, and he said, you know what, I can help you with this manuscript. And he said he would charge me half of what he normally charges. And he was a very well-known author. He was a ghostwriter. One of his books is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And so he's done 9 books, and he was also a professional editor. So he did a great job. And then he liked it so much, he passed it on to his own publisher. And they liked it. And when they found out that it was a third book in a series, they wanted the whole thing. And that's how I got the contract. So that third book came about by that priest looking up, in extraterrestrials and spirituality. If he didn't do that, we would not be talking.
Yeah.
So, again, that kind of confirms what I write in the preface of the first novel, that there's fate, there's destiny. We all have roles to play. Some are larger than others, and other people have a greater influence on ourselves than we have on our own.
Yeah, I love that. And it sounds to me like that's part of your work, right? Because a book is not something that, one or 10 people reads, especially at the level that you're now at, and, how your next book is going to be coming out into the world. It's something that has a greater impact because so many people read it. And I have young kids, and she talks a lot about fandoms, and I guess they, books nowadays create a whole fandom and a whole world and a whole belief system, around it. That to me speaks to your role here, right? To your being, delivering this information and doing it in such a fun way, which is writing, right? Through writing, that is one of the most
Yeah.
beautiful ways of communication, in my opinion, in the human experience. So I love that very much. I would say, one of the things that we have sort of touched on a couple of times throughout this conversation is the importance of our behavior, right, as humans. What do you think humans can do? And which I guess sort of in a parallel way of, what do you hope the readers take away from your books?
There are two things that could improve um, our spirituality, that could get us on the right path towards a higher level of spirituality. One is just following um, instructions that Jesus told us, which is um, we are here to make life better for others instead of making life better for ourselves at the expense of others. If we just live by that rule, you can imagine, how higher in spirituality, in our consciousness, we could be on this planet. What kind of things would disappear and what kind of things would start to happen. The other thing is, everyone should understand that we have a gift that we're born with, and that people don't take advantage of it, and that is using our third eye and learning meditation, because meditation is listening to God, while praying is talking to God. So when you meditate, you are given the information that you need, that your spirit has determined that you need to carry out your role. It's kind of like the instructions on how to carry out your life. And in a lot of ways, it's not literal. You're going to get information, and you're going to have to interpret it in as to what it means. It's it's almost like a puzzle,
Yeah.
but it's a gift. And once you start to meditate, that's when things start to happen. That's what happened to me. I didn't I didn't start to understand my role. I didn't start to meet all these people that I met, are part of, the role that I was given. So you know it's essentially just opening up that one door to the life that you were meant to live.
I love that. That's so beautiful. As we get ready to wrap up this beautiful conversation that we've had, I have one question for you, for our listeners. What advice do
Mhm.
you have for someone who is listening and they may feel stuck? They know they have this inner knowing that they're meant for more, that they're here meant for more, but they don't know what to do or where to go or how to figure out what that calling is.
Yeah, probably continue to meditate. Um, Probably connect with people, like-minded people, um, and you get into support groups that talk about people that that you talk with people that have the similar experiences. They're not alone. There are people that are like that all over the place. They're seekers, right? People call them seekers, and um, it's they're you know, you have to find the way to find those people is that, you know, you just get into groups, or even if you go to, you know, shops that are spiritual shops, you know, that they have like, you know, the crystals or incense and things like that, or Eastern religion paraphernalia. Um, Talk to the people there. They'll probably tell you what kind of activities are going on, where you could connect with people socially on on that scale.
Absolutely. And also things like following you on your Facebook page and checking out your website. Things like that. Those are always great places to start building the connections. I'm a true believer in that. You know, in order to magnetize the things that are meant for us, we kind of have to go out and search for them. So, um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, go out. When can we expect your book? When do you expect it to be coming out?
Which one? The second one?
The third one. So the one that is it summer 2026?
Oh, the third one. Which what doesn't kill her? The which was originally the second one? Is that what
No,
you're
I
talking
think I
about?
have them backwards. I think I have them absolutely backwards. So tell me which one is coming out soon and when we can expect it.
That will be this one right here. I'll show you the
Yes.
cover.
Yes. Oh, I love it.
It's the Disclosure Paradox, Book Two, Salvation,
I love it.
and it's um, it's about a conspiracy to steal the Shroud of Turin. And it starts with a murder in the Vatican,
Mm.
and it's a sequel because there are characters from the first book that are in this one. And there is also a new character in this one related to what happens in the first book that I can't really divulge too much. But I'll tell you one thing, it's about the blood of Christ, because I've learned that there is no human match for his blood. The DNA is not human, and the shroud was made uh, through a radiological event. So that's very special. And there are 376 verses in the New Testament that mentions the blood of Christ. That's not an accident. That's not a coincidence. There's something about that. And then there is that um, verse that says, "His blood will wash away the sins of the earth." And we should take that literally, because my premise in the second novel is, if we were someday get the technology to harvest his DNA, we could use it to repair our own DNA and become like him. Remember, I told you our
Yeah.
DNA is
Yeah.
flawed.
Yeah.
My belief is that he died to leave us his DNA.
That is I've never heard of that. That is pretty amazing when you think about why, right? Like why did he die? What yes, to forgive our sins, but like how? And perhaps
Forgiving our sins is it's a euphemism.
right.
It's a euphemism. It's a riddle. It's not something to be taken
Yeah.
literally.
And that goes back also to what you mentioned, where when you're getting sort of the information about, what your calling is and what it is that you are here to do, what your job is, I wanted to say there's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot in my own life, in my own day to day experience. A lot of what I get is symbolism. Very little of it is straightforward. So when you phrase it that
Mm-hmm.
way, yeah, I'm excited for it. So your book, it can be found on your website. Is that right? And I think Amazon as well.
Yeah, it's all over the place. You could also get it at Barnes and Noble,
Awesome. The
right?
first one, and then the third
And
one, and then the one coming out, which is the second one.
yeah,
That one can also be found on your website, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and
you
everywhere. And I have your website as www.thedisclosureparadox.com. So if you are listening, go
correct.
ahead, check it out, get Paul's books, and join the conversation. Tell us what you think. Tell us your take on it and share your experiences. I'm very open on this channel at all times. I've had a spiritual awakening that has brought me here. um, so yeah, there's a lot of us. There's a lot of people like Paul and myself. And Paul, thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you for putting your message out there. Thank you for writing these books and for sharing that in such a fun way.
Okay.
Of
Thank
course.
you.
And for you, free spirits, if you're listening, thank you for listening in on this conversation. And if it sparked something in you, go read Paul's books, start the Disclosure Paradox, and let yourself question everything you thought you knew. You can find his work at thedisclosureparadox.com. And as Paul reminded us today, awakening doesn't happen all at once, but once it begins, there is no turning back. Until next time, and as always, keep flying
Yeah.
and don't be afraid to look up.